love is everlasting. Oh, give thanks to the God of gods, for his love is everlasting. Oh, give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his love is everlasting. To him alone who does great signs, for his love is everlasting. Who made the heavens by his design, for his love is everlasting. Who spread the earth across the seas, for his love is everlasting. To him who made the light's array, for his love is everlasting. The sun to rule throughout the day, for his love is everlasting. The moon and stars to rule the night, for his love is everlasting. To him who struck Egypt's firstborn, for his love is everlasting. From their midst brought Israel forth, for his love is everlasting. Strong and with outstretched arm, for his love is everlasting. To him who split the sea in two, for his love is everlasting. So Israel could pass right through, for his love is everlasting. The Pharaoh's troops were overthrown, for his love is everlasting. Led through wilderness, for his love is everlasting. To him who struck down mighty kings, for his love is everlasting. He slew those kings of great renown, for his love is everlasting. Sihon, king of the Amorites, for his love is everlasting. The Bashan's heights, for his love is everlasting. He gave their lands to Israel, for his love is everlasting. He recalled our lowliness, for his love is everlasting. From our foes delivered us, for his love is everlasting. Provides all flesh with food, for his love is everlasting. Give thanks to the God of heaven, for his love is everlasting. Give thanks to the God of heaven, for his love is everlasting. Psalm 136. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his love is everlasting. I wanted to start out today by reading from the New Testament that I think something that sheds light upon this and brings us into a new context. And it's from Paul's letter to the Colossians, and starting from verse 9. For this reason also, since the day we heard of it, that is, your faith and love in the Spirit, we have not ceased to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so that you may walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, to please him in all respects, bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, for the attaining of all steadfastness and patience, joyously giving thanks to the Father, who has qualified us to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. For he delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. And he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created by him and for him. and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is also head of the body, the church, and he is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he himself might come to have first place in everything. For it was the Father's good pleasure for all the fullness to dwell in him, and through him to reconcile all things to himself, having made peace through the blood of his cross. Through him, I say, whether things on earth or things in heaven. And although you were formerly alienated and hostile in mind, engaged in evil deeds, yet he has now reconciled you in his fleshly body through death, in order to present you before him holy and blameless and beyond reproach. So how does this relate to this psalm? I just wanted to start from the beginning. It starts talking about we're giving thanks to the God of all creation, who created the heavens by his design and then created the earth and the seas. So we get this idea of everything coming from God, the heavens and the earth, which in my mind suggests that the spiritual realms are his and come from him, and the physical realm. So there is a spiritual realm and a physical realm. Both that higher dimension, which is also an inner dimension, the realm of the spirit and spirituality. And then there's this outer dimension of the earth, which is the lower dimensions. But all of it is coming from God. And it might even be said that the lower springs from the higher, and the outer springs from the inner. And so that's where it starts with. And then it starts talking about how God created the great lights. And he made the sun to rule the day, and the moon and the stars to rule the night. And to me, this suggests that the outer creation, that which we see and experience with our five outer senses, has something to say to us about the spiritual journey. Because every single day we see the dawn and the rising of the sun, and we see that light displacing and dispelling the darkness. And it is as if God is saying, for those who have ears to hear, come out of the darkness and into my glorious light. I will that my light shall dawn upon the human race in the course of time, in this great dawning of the light. And likewise, every single night we have this story told to us. Every 28 days or so, the moon does the same thing, proclaims the same message. As we start with a full moon when it's completely dark, and then each night it becomes more and more lit up until we have a full moon, and it's full and bright. And this is God's message to us, if you can hear it. In the inner dimension, God is willing that his light marches forward, and that he wants to transfer us out of the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of light. That's why I wanted to start out with the book of Colossians. He's transferring us, delivering us from the domain, the dominion, and the slavery of darkness. And he's transferring us into the kingdom of light, the kingdom of his beloved Son. And so, this psalm then goes into talking about how Israel was enslaved in the domain of Egypt and under that tyrannical Pharaoh who was oppressive and killing their children and enslaving them with his whip upon their backs. And that's what it is too when we were in darkness. We were enslaved. We were slaves of our lower passion, of our lower desires. And it's as if there's something within us that's saying, nobody ever escapes the grip of sin. Jesus looks at the Exodus in a metaphoric kind of a way when he says, he who commits sin is a slave of sin, but the truth shall make us free. His truth will make us free. That's his whole point, is to bring us out of that slavery and into freedom. You know, that voice, that lie of the darkness says nobody ever gets free of this. You're an angry person, and you're always going to be an angry person. Nobody breaks free of anger. Well, that's a bunch of baloney. God can bring us out of our slavery of anger. Let's say, have you ever had experience with being in a grudge, and it wants to grip us there, hold us there. It's very difficult. But we can break free of that through the power of Christ within us. Or maybe that voice is saying, nobody ever breaks free of lust. That's just the human condition. That's just the way it is. Might as well just get used to it. Well, that's a bunch of baloney. It's not true. You can overcome the draw and the pull of your lower passions. Or it says nobody ever breaks free of greed or selfishness. That's not true. We can become selfless love in our Lord Jesus Christ, who is the image of God, the divine image. So Jesus comes and shows us our potential, our higher potential, our spiritual potential. And though that enemy that wants to keep us bound and says, there's no breaking free of this, I've got you under my dominion, you're forever my slave, it's not true. The truth is that you can be free, and God wills for you to be free, and wills for me to be free. But it's not a cakewalk. And that's also the truth. It's not like God waves a magic wand over us or throws some pixie dust on us because we said one prayer, and all of a sudden we're just free of all of our passions and desires or anger or grudges, and we just walk in perfect love or in perfect peace. No. It's a journey. And after conversion, we go through this wandering process, just like the children of Israel through the desert. And we experience spiritual dryness and aridity, and we have temptations, and we have difficulties and struggles. And it's a long process. It requires perseverance. Jesus never said that this was easy or a cakewalk. He tells us like it is. And in fact, all the scriptures tell us like it is. It is a journey that requires perseverance. And then it goes on to talk about how the Lord, after leading his people beyond the Red Sea and through the wilderness, then they had to face enemies and foes, and there was battles. And sometimes, I look at the Old Testament and I say, well, that's awfully bloody. As a Christian, I want the path of love, and I hate war. And I look at the Old Testament and say, oh, I wish that wasn't in there. But, it needs to be in there. That imagery needs to be in there because there's no better analogy or metaphor for the kind of struggle that is required. It is a battle. St. Paul says we battle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, the powers, the world forces of this darkness that exist in the spiritual realms. And it is a battle. There are those forces that will fight us tooth and nail for every inch of that good land. And that good land, we're not looking for a physical piece of property. We're looking for the land of the new nature. We want to be brought into that new life and that new state of being. That is a place too. When we talk about somebody who let's say we know someone is in a depression or in a really bad mood, we might say, oh, he's in a real bad place right now, right? We instinctively have a sense of that's a place. If you're in a depression, you're in a place, in a state of being. And so spiritual darkness is a place too. If we're filled with negative attitude or anger or bitterness or wrath or lust or greed and selfishness, and we're all closed in on ourselves, we're in a place, we're in a state of being that's not healthy. It's not our fuller potential. And God wants to bring us up and out of that place and into a better place, into the ultimate flavor of being, if you will, which I call Zion zone or Jesusness. It's one and the same. Jesus defines that spiritual sweet spot, that Zion zone, that good land, that promised land flowing with milk and honey. And it's defined in his teachings. Abide in my love, he says. My peace I give to you. We want to be in a state of peace and to hold that. We want to have some experience of joy and live in that. And a heart that lives in a loving intention is a lifted heart. There's a lift in that. There's a blessing in that. And God wants to bring us into that experience and into that new life, into that abundant life. And so, yes, there are battles. And God is calling us to take the land. And that requires some intensity. And we've got to go after this with all that is within us. I was thinking this week about an analogy of, imagine that that there's a music that is playing, a heavenly music. And you never heard it before, but at some point you heard this music that you never heard before, and it was the most beautiful thing that you said, I've got to hear that music again, because you just heard a flash of it, and it lifted you, and it made your heart just soar, and you felt such peace, and you felt it was like heaven on earth, but you only had a little flash of it. To me, that's a little bit like that conversion experience when God brings us through the Red Sea and he takes us out on a journey. But now we've got to discover how to tune into that music. And that's like our wilderness wanderings. If you've ever been on with a radio dial and you're trying to tune in that music, if you're too far to the left, all you get is static. And then you too far to the right, and all you get is static again. But if you tune it just so, if you find just that sweet spot, some of that music is beginning to play again. And that music is always playing, but we don't always hear it because we're not always the right kind of receiver. We're not always tuned in to the right station in our life. And that's part of the struggle, that we need to learn how to take our minds and learn how to live in the heart and to learn how to abide in the love of Christ. But now let's say that music was streaming to us, this divine music, this heavenly music, was streaming to us in several different stations all joining together. It's like a great orchestra, but each station is playing a different section of the orchestra. So you've got one station playing the contrabass, and another section playing the cellos, another the violin, the violas, the flutes, the oboes, the trumpets. So there's all these different stations, but they're all playing the same symphonic music that is so beautiful. But you've got to tune in all these different receivers, and let's say that your heart now is that receiver, and it has all these kinds of antenna, and we've got to adjust those antennas just right. And out here, there are these tuning knobs for each of those stations. And when we tune it in, when we tune into the love that is always playing, because His love is everlasting, then we can hear like the contrabass, that root and ground of that divine music. But then we can also tune in another station here, and we can start hearing some peace. Maybe that's like the flute section. So love and peace blending together in this beautiful music. And maybe there's a hint of joy. Maybe that's like the trumpet sections. And you see there's the music that's beginning to happen in the heart. In the heart. But there are enemies on either side, all surrounding our heart. And they're always wanting to mess with those knobs and throw them off kilter and get our attention off on this tangent or on this tangent. And that's part of the battle, that we need to take the land. You know, whatever that King Sihon of the Amorites or that King Og of Bashan might be for us. Let's say that we have an anger problem. And that's a battle. That's a struggle. And we're going to have to fight with that king and annihilate it in ourselves. Not that we're wanting to slay any literal human being and their people. No, we're called to be a people of love and a people of peace, a people of gentleness and kindness. So we're slaying, that enemy that wants to fuddle with the knobs here and throw it off and keep our heart from enjoying that beautiful divine music that is always playing. His love is everlasting. It's just that someone is fiddling with the knobs, so to speak. So you need to take the land. You need to own that radio station and own this radio station and own this one and everything that surrounds the heart and the mind. And you need to take the land so that we can flow in that music and know all of the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, purity, generosity, humility. All of that blending together like this wonderful symphonic music. All these parts playing together. And the music is always playing. It's just that our hearts and minds are not always tuned in to the right station. So may God break us free from the hold of that darkness and those tyrannical forces that wanted to get our attention away from what really matters. And may God bring us through the desert, testing us and training us and teaching us to tune in. And may God give us victory over those forces of darkness that we have to do battle with. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. He recalled our lowliness, for His love is everlasting. And from our foes He delivered us, for His love is everlasting.